polling locations. It's about 20% from 24 to 2012. It looks like there's been a much, or at least I imagine there's been a much larger increase in the number of early votes cast during that time period too. Doesn't it make sense to reduce the number of polling locations as people shift towards early voting?
I'd just like to say something about that quickly. Part of the challenge with reducing the number of polling locations is the notification. That's something that has to be a repeat effort, especially until such time as we do actually have that online. I've encountered numerous voters from my district alone who told me, because I believe there were 70 locations in my district that were consolidated or relocated, and some of them really didn't really make sense where those voters were directed to. They were very much outside of their communities. So in that instance, it's important that they have repeat communication with them. Scroll it on the news, just like we do when the school closes. Give them as many opportunities to know that there has been a change and that change affects them. Because some voters who are voting on election day, if they're not voting until after work, that change of location that they're not aware of, if they can't get on their phone, jump on their laptop real quick, to find out where that is, they miss an opportunity, and that's just unacceptable.
And I would just add that the big concern we have is that, yes, we have consolidated precincts and polling places because of the increased use of early voting, but now we see this constant effort by the GOP to shrink opportunities for early voting, the effort to cut off the 3 busiest days of early voting, the effort to get rid of popular weekend and evening hours. So we're very concerned that we have shrunk back the number of polling places and precincts, but we've also cut the early voting opportunities, and this seems to be pushing us in the direction back to 2004 when we had long lines at the polls, and that's why we adopted early voting.
You mentioned the registering voters to DMV. From what you can tell, what is the issue there? Why isn't it occurring more often and at a better rate compared to other states?
Well, I think, and Representative Clyde, we both can answer.
Right.
Leader Hurd just whispered that it's not being promoted. Some of this has a lot to do with training and making it a priority. And we don't necessarily see that happening. It's very simple to do. And I firmly believe that the workers at the BMV, if the training was stepped up and if this was made a priority, would absolutely have no problem in making sure that it happens. But it is not happening. As a matter of fact, Representative Clyde and I introduced legislation to do a study group about this. Not necessarily pointing fingers directly, but the numbers don't lie. And we certainly should do better. We have our neighbors in other states who do a much better job. And it goes back to creating a pro-voter environment. Not a pro-Democrat environment, not a pro-Republican environment, but a pro-voter environment. And a pro-voter environment says that we would make sure that we are utilizing that. It is federal law, and we're not complying. So, and I know Representative Clyde has something to say on that as well.
The theme is exactly right. There's also one other kind of technical issue that's occurring. People who are using the online system with the BMV and who click the box to have their address update also serve as their voter registration update or voter registration, some of those people, thousands of them actually, are being misled, because if they are not already registered to vote, they're just thrown out. They're not notified that they're not being registered, even though they click a box that makes it seem like they're being registered. And it doesn't follow federal law not to be registering those voters, but we have tens of thousands of examples of people who were on the BMV's online system, clicked the box, said, yes, I want to register or update my registration, and thousands of those people's registrations are not processed. So that's a huge problem, a specific problem, plus just this kind of refusal to investigate, how we could do better and why we're not doing better. It's been a problem that's been identified for a long time, and it's important that we fix it and offer this important convenience to voters.
I was going to States, so do other states, like when you automatically update your address information on the BMV, do they have a automatically online registration in that way?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how federal law directs the use of the online system through the BMV.
Somebody brought up a complaint I hadn't heard before about there being no public comment period for directives. Has that ever been done before by any other Secretary of State?
Well, I mean, the law is clear about the timeline by which the Secretary of State has to do a temporary versus a public, or temporary versus a permanent directive. So I'm not aware of any other Secretary of State violating that law, but if they did, they violated it. But the point is what is happening right now, the violation of directives going out that should have public comment period has not had. Representative Clyde and I both sent letters to the Secretary making him aware of this, and he has not responded to us at all. And this is not about us, this is about the voters, it's about the community. They are entitled to be able to comment. And so I don't know, Representative Clyde, if you want to add to that, but
You're saying that state law requires a public comment period for directives in addition to administrative rules?
if they're not, the difference between a permanent and a temporary directive, absolutely.
It's very clear in the law.
Yeah.
It's very clear
And
in
we
the law.
can get you
and
the
it's-
section. if you
Yeah,
want.
and it's not being followed.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you.